out some political, psychological, and sociocultural analyses that arm you with some examples and some frameworks to better get your eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment with. For today's topic, we are going to talk all about this prolific problem of the insufferable, contemptible right-wing dorkery that is amounting to every fucking possible classical cope theory excuse under the sun to be indulgent, lazy, fickle, impulsive, subordinate, pathetic, weak, dishonest. And we see that in this weed versus alcohol debate, which essentially reduces to, well, my degeneracy is based. Your degeneracy is cringe. What the fuck ever happened to discipline and degeneracy of all forms is cringe and gay and emasculine? I think a lot about how these dorks have this compulsion identification with masculinity, which would be based and great and all if you actually were fucking being masculine instead of putting on a LARP of masculinity. And that's evident in their complete and total utter inability to sequester impulses, to intrinsically value discipline in and of itself, not as utility for fucking pussy, and transcend their basic neurotransmitters. So that's going to be our story today. I'm going to go through every cope for alcohol and elucidate this problem of everything from the health copes, the freedom copes, the cope about based societies, based imperial societies drink, but gay brown societies smoke. We're going to go over this false linearity, this convenient reusing of linear morality versus categorical morality, and so on and so forth. I got my outline right here. I went pretty hard. This is, of course, as always, going to evolve into a thousands and thousands of words article because I try to get really deep into the depths of the mind. It's not enough just to say it's a cope. Oh, well, alcohol is also doing things to feel good, so QED, you're owned, rightoid tard. It's not enough to do that. That's tired, insipid, and really doesn't try to solve the problem. You need to solve the problem by getting at the depths of this pathology, elucidating it, reconstructing it, and proposing an understanding of why that is the selected pathology, even well beyond my usual stuff about hunter-gatherer, neurotransmitters, and peanut little survival instincts. And we have that at the end here. I talk about how people misconstrue what discipline means. Discipline is not perpetual self-flagellation, and it's not, oh, I need to invoke guilt upon myself for doing wrong. It really winds up just reducing to pursue the right thing so much you forget to do wrong. If you're endlessly guilting yourself to do wrong, you think about wrong. You think about wrong, eventually that's going to leak into you doing it because some rationalization thoughts enter the mind and it tempts you. Just thinking about wrong tempts you in that way. So that'll be our Marchese Daily, aka Marchese Sometimes, Lazy Brownoid Mediterranean. Before we begin, remember to Marchese Max, like, subscribe, retweet. Getting up there a little bit on the Twitter. It's sort of been stagnant, but I've been monitor my situation. I monitor my followers every day. And it goes up, it goes down. I don't know what it is with the unfollows. Sorry, bro, if you don't like what I say. This is Twitter. You're going to see things that you don't like what you say, what people say. So just like grow up and follow me and get over it. And at least if you don't like what I say, you hear some arguments to counter, and so you could strengthen your own position. That's sort of part of the point of listening to what other people have to say. So that is that there. Checking my systems here. All right. So let's begin with, I was ordering it, but now it's not quite in full order. So let's just see where I go, right? I always speak extemporaneously anyway. Now, the most recent development in the classical cope theory school, in the Trump school of classical cope theory, is this social lubrication cope. This idea that, Gen Z is so not social, and it's a freaking heckin' crisis that Gen Z is not drinking, and because like alcohol has always been the social lubricant of society. What the fuck does that mean? What are you even talking about? How is that even an axiomatic argument to even begin with in the first place? Alcohol has always been the social lubricant. What does that mean? That means it makes people socialize? How about just socialize without fucking alcohol, faggot? It's been the social lubricant. What does that mean? Does the lubricant word mean that it facilitates socialization better and more so? Oh, yeah. Really social stuff there with alcohol. When people, number one, get into fights and drunk drive and exemplify the worst gas station behavior, gas station fucking trash behavior. And yeah, it's really social. Why don't you go to a bar or club where people do their gay little goy juice and see what actually kind of socialization happens? You know what happens? People don't talk to anybody. They sit there and they go, and then they go, when the part of the song comes on, they go, ah, and then they go, and then they go to their friend. They're like, dude, this girl right here is so hot. I'm about to fuck her, dude. And then nothing fucking happens. Or they do the little, and then the Snapchat, and then the curling over like a fucking freak, like a melted coon brain. So real socialization going on there. Some other versions of this cope have amounted to, well, people just need a freaking heckin' place to hang out and relax, and I'll get to the relax cope, but a freaking place after work to decompress and socialize with people. Okay, go to the fucking park then, faggot. Aren't you all based, sunlight respecting, freaking heckin' health bro, freaking raw meat and raw milk, sunlight and fucking is based and raises my testosterone. I'm gonna sun my ball. Aren't you all sun bros, soul bras? So how about you just go for a fucking walk? Isn't a walk, according to your low IQ determinism, the one of the best freaking heckin' ways to be happy? And people are happy when they go outside and they walk and they do grounding. Remember that? The grounding? When you put your bare feet on the grass? The electrostatic input. So what happened to that? How about that to socialize? How about just fucking meet and do anything? How about go play How about socialize at the gym? Did we forget about that part too? Well, that's not relaxing. Yes, it is. Stop coping with this idea of relaxing. Kind of the fucking problem of everyone and everywhere is relaxing. A little bit too much. You can be social without this. Now, there's also this idea that let me say this. If you need alcohol to socialize, then you're not actually socializing. It's inauthentic. And isn't your whole shtick that you want to do things with discipline and everything too? So to do it with alcohol is conditioning socialization, which makes the point of it all not socialization. If the point of socialization was what it's stated as, you would just socialize. Go to like a board game fucking place or whatever. Go bro out. Go LOL at Target or something. Like whatever it is. Fucking even go to your gay little coffee shops instead. You need alcohol to reduce the anxiety to socialize is a problem. It is a problem that betrays sovereignty. It is a problem that betrays your identity. And it is conditioning socialization on the alcohol, which means alcohol is what you want and or need. You want to socialize, just socialize. Socialize. It's supposed to be developing that. Developing the skills. You're not developing the skills if you need some sort of PED, essentially. So you're not going to feel it this way. And this is an important segue into an often idea, and that is people sort of have this false urgency that, well, Gen Z is not socializing and it's making them miserable, so they have to very quickly socialize as if fucking what? They're gonna die? As if fucking what? This idea that you need socialization that bad is like peak mammal brain neediness coded. What, you're a woman? Remember this bit about how women like die if they don't have attention? You're a fucking woman. You're an e-girl. You're a girl. You feel like you're dying if you don't have fucking somebody acknowledging your existence and giving you attention. You know how we make fun of women for that? Why is that a thing? Why is there even the setup such that we feel we can make fun of that? Because it's needy, because it is inauthentic, and because it is low self-esteem, and it is weak. It is pathetic. It is loserdom. It is goyish behavior to be that needy. We're all such based alpha tough right wingers. You know what part of that is? Part of that is non-neediness, sovereignty. Part of that is individualism. Yeah, be based about the white race and everything, but on some level, you babies are using that as a cope excuse to not be individualistic, to not develop individualism and discipline, and to be a needy little fucking baby in need of attention, in need to being a part of a group, and to be part of a group confirms some kind of belonging. You want to be edgy, but you want to be a part of the group. So if you're a part of the edgy group, then you get the best of all worlds. You get to have your cake and eat it too. So this faux urgency of you need this or else you're going to die is what you think and what you feel if you're a giant fucking mammal brain baby. And you have no sense of sovereignty, no purpose, no agency, no discipline. And you're fundamentally a giant fucking vagina. Moreover, supposing, let's lend to that. So, okay, so we need socialization. Fair enough, on some level, you want to socialize. I value my friends. Whatever version of this, whatever version statement we need to segue into, okay, so there's the socialization that we want to ascertain, that we want to accumulate, feel, be present in. Your ego, which is not the way it's usually used. Ego is another word also just for like intrinsic raw identity personality. Your ego, your managerial element of your personality, evaluating what to do, when and why, mediating between the superego, your ideal self, and your id, your indulgent, pathetic, loser, baby self. It cannot feel socialization the way you want or actually truly need to feel it if it is conditioned on alcohol. Because what is the drinking of alcohol there? It is, even the one drink, you are intending the drink to be an alteration of consciousness, an alteration of presentation, an alteration of identity. When you do that, how you are received by other people and their affection, how you receive it is for that put on, is for that act, is for that persona, is for that inauthentic, altered self. So you'll never actually feel that as the socialization you need, the acknowledgement of existence, the slight vulnerability, the appropriate degree of vulnerability in that circumstance, if it's befriending people or whatever. You're never going to feel that as seen fully and authentically. So you do that anyway, this alcohol thing, as a cope hedge to emulate socialization without the risk of portraying the vulnerable self. And you feel vulnerable, you feel wounded like that intrinsically, perpetually, forever, and unable to withstand the risk of negative reception if you are living in eternal guilt and self-judgment, because you're coping and fucking seething and being a giant indulgent baby and failing to live up to your standards, failing to live up to your ideal self, failing to live up to your values. And you are instead indulging yourself, indulging the id. So you're going to feel in this perpetual wound, you're going to feel overwhelmed and in need of alcohol to emulate the socialization, to mitigate the risk. But without the risk is not the reward. You cannot and will not feel this as authentic socialization. And if you're either coping about it or you're a fucking idiot, you're going to repeat this cycle to keep trying to emulate it, to keep trying to have your cake and eat it too, and keep trying to socialize without risk. Even with one drink, and this is the cope, this is another layer to this cope, is this idea that so long as I'm not getting drunk, and I'll get into that false continuum there. But it's this false premise of, well, technically, if I drink the one drink, I'm not in an altered state of consciousness if I'm not drunk. But it's an oxymoron, because why do you say this? Why do you say this? Okay, well, if it doesn't alter your consciousness, then it doesn't make for social lubrication, as you're saying. It's an oxymoron. If it doesn't have that effect, an alteration, if there isn't an alteration, then it doesn't socially lubricate. And if it doesn't socially lubricate, then what the fuck are you talking about? Then you just have to admit to being a coon brain and wanting to feelsy goodsy. So relatedly, so if you really want to fucking socialize, you have to do it without alcohol. That's just what that is. There's anything else you can congregate around, and it won't feel to you like an authentic seeing of your identity, an authentic acknowledgement, an awareness of your identity. It won't feel like the appropriate emotional transaction if it is contingent on drinking. Now, there's also this cope about, well, Gen Z needs to do this to save the birth rates because we need sexuality to save the birth rates. Oh, really? What happened to the base family when freaking heckin' degenerate promiscuous sex and oh. Yeah, it's really constructive and conducive to society to have births amidst trailer park trash, drunken fickleness. Yeah, that totally hasn't been a problem. Broken families. Because when you fuck under those conditions, you are fucking under the idea or condition that this is not maintainable. This does not have the intention to commit or be loyal. This has the intention of getting off, both physically and egotistically. Getting, oh, I get to be a tough guy, I feel good, I got laid, and for women, sort of something similar. So that's not exactly constructive to families, you fucking faggot dork, and you know that. You're just a giant fucking indulgent pussy, fucking loser, dishonest, inauthentic LARPer. Moreover, there's a layer to that sexuality part that is this tacit sort of idea that you need to be having sex to be happy. And this is further illustrative of these dorks LARPing discipline and LARPing sovereignty while simultaneously subordinating to sexuality and women. Yet you actually don't need sexuality to function and to exist and to feel healthy and to feel social and to have relationship or to have a sense of non-loneliness. This is just needy cope, indulgent, pleasure-seeking cope, coon brain, pee-pee pet cope. And a cope excuse to get this ego validation of masculine conferral by women and value by women, which is remarkable too. If women are the judge, jury, and executioner or whatever, the arbiters of male value and masculinity, that by definition puts you beneath them. You have placed yourself beneath women under that guise. This false urgency of sexuality is so old. And this is remarkable about the right wing because the original idea of the discipline and everything is to transcend sexuality, particularly since you want to be such alphas and not betas. It would do you well to intrinsically and authentically value and transcend sexuality so that women can't leverage it against you. Isn't that the whole point? Isn't that part of that? Or is it just to LARP disciplined because you think it'll attract women and everything and fucking anything is sexual utility? But if it's about sexual utility, then it's an oxymoron. You can never arrive at sovereignty. So, and that stems from low IQ determinism about the happy chemicals and all of that. None of that has anything to do with happiness. Or perhaps these are very small stars in the constellation of happiness, as evident by just look at fucking people who are miserable, who have all of the, or who have all of those things. You can still be miserable with those things. Why? Because happiness entails purpose, it entails transcendence, it entails sovereignty, it entails resolution of pathology and wounds. You will never feel this socialization, if it's conditioned on alcohol, because you have presented something that isn't yourself. Therefore, who you are is not the one socializing. So, let me check myself here. I have so many notes here that it's bullet points that I actually have to like read. I can't like always so easily quickly. But let's go over relatedly another prolific element to this cope is a lot of these dorks just want an excuse to be degenerate, an excuse to be indulgent. And so but through this lens of discipline and everything, they tacitly know that it is subordinate, it is weak, it is juvenile. They have to redefine it. And so they redefine it the previously mentioned way, and they also do this fucking based conqueror societies drank and freaking stoner societies were retard fucking hunter-gatherers. Right. The founding fathers and Rome was the way it was because everyone was pissed drunk and having gay butt sex. Duh. That's why. We're really going to do the most low IQ, unironic, I hate hearing myself even say it, but not understanding correlation doesn't fucking imply causation. You faggots know that, though. I don't even actually have to surmise that as a product of low IQ. You fucking faggots know that. But there's this, they use this false rationality to it whereby it is sort of like, well, not necessarily the correlation and causation, but they figure the precipitating characteristics that required to build imperial and epic societies still proliferated amidst alcohol. Well, therefore, alcohol is not degenerative to sovereignty, discipline, toughness, and all of that. And therefore, if those qualities led to that alcohol, well, then if I drink, then I must have those qualities. And this is sort of like this false logic of not understanding that, X implying Y does not translate to Y implying X. This is like what you do if you're like actually have a fucking IQ and you understand logic for real. And I hate using that word because you know how it goes with gay faggots emotionally masturbating to hearing themselves talk about logic. But a simple example of this is if I have a dog, I have a pet. But that doesn't mean that if I have a pet, I necessarily have a dog. Very simple example that tells you that there's converse. You have to, it's a separate proof and claim for the converse. So societies that operate as imperial and based and epic and conquerous, drinking alcohol does not mean the alcohol caused that. Those things causing alcohol consumption doesn't mean alcohol consumption causes the former. So, as fucking if any of you fucking dorks are at the caliber of Roman emperors or George Washington or something anyway. Yeah, George Washington drank. So that means if you drink, you're going to be like fucking George Washington. Not if you BTFO and start your own fucking country and be a war hero and general and then president of the United States. That's not what made him great. The drinking is what made him great. How's that working out? Let's see who drinks. Let's see what the population of people who drink looks like. Idiot. There's also this layer to that logic that is both the false converse proof of adequacy, but also this barometer that is appearance. This barometer that is, well, if I appear that way, the appearance is necessarily a consequence of the precipitating characteristics. But the problem is you only evaluate appearance through sight, through visibility. So there's no way for appearance to also automatically confer the characteristics, because the appearance reproduces without those characteristics. Appearance is easy. Appearance only evaluates through the visual, the appearance, not the evidence. Okay, so George Washington was great, and the appearance or the associated behaviors are the appearance. The associated cope things like drinking are the appearance, but not the evidence. The evidence is that he was fucking president of the United States and he BTFO'd and he was a war hero in general. That's the evidence. The appearance is the aesthetic, is the alcohol, is the dressage. So it's sort of like this this foot and door phenomenon, whereby they think, okay, well, if I mimic the easy characteristics, it'll somehow write a Python program in my mind that'll leak into making me do the other things. How about you just do the other things? How about you just make yourself do the other things? Because nothing can ever fucking make you do those things except yourself. Alcohol doesn't write that Python program in your mind. As evident as we just saw with this idea that, oh, it's freaking heckin' social woo-boo-cation. Really? Because it doesn't make people approach each other. People still have to approach each other despite feeling anxious about it. You think that it'll write a Python program that'll suppress your anxiety enough such that you'll approach people. You still have to approach people. And what happens is the anxiety never gets suppressed enough. So you will still approach people or not approach people, because nothing can make you do it except for yourself. And if anxiety is what's stopping you, then the problem is the anxiety to be overcome. That can only be overcome by resolving your pathology, by developing confidence, by doing fucking metabolic, challenging things, by keeping your promises to yourself, and by being aligned. Super ego aligned. Ideal self aligned. And let's just even evaluate this at the surface level. Exactly how does drinking contribute to society being great like that? What is actually the functional difference between because isn't it remarkable that what they're saying there is the intrinsic decision to select alcohol is that difference. So by saying the selection, the process of the selection is the difference, that way they're essentially getting to say, well, therefore selecting alcohol to indulge in isn't subordination, isn't impulsive, fickle, weak, undisciplined. The comparison is not the effects of alcohol, but the characteristics that make you choose alcohol. So they therefore get to say, then, well, that it procured these consequences must mean that it's not degenerative to select alcohol. It's not impulsive. It's not emotional to select alcohol. But it is so to select weed. Oh, really? Let's see what happens when people drink alcohol. Because what is the premise of drinking alcohol? You are drinking it to feel good. That is the category of undisciplined. That is the category of insovereignty and of weakness. And similarly, this is where they get into like the aristocrat cope. It's because elites and the aristocrats select alcohol as their indulgent, degenerative drug and feelsy-goodsy pastime of choice. Similarly, that must mean they're excused to drink that way because it must not make you degenerate. It must not make you, by association, degenerative, proletariat, goy. It functions the exact same way, just it procures a different image or costume, or it's the same exact structure. associative logic, converse logic, false converse logic. Wanting to appear instead of be. Preoccupying with appearance, but ultimately reducing to an excuse to feelsy goodsy, to be a hedonist. Now, let's get into that segues into the other element to this problem, like the logical core of this problem. And this usually reduces to, well, one drink, it's not that big a deal. And as I said, well, that's an oxymoron because you're drinking for the sake of altering your consciousness, for the sake of feeling good. That is a category. That is not a linearity. But they transmute this into a linearity because the linear standard is, well, if it's drunkenness, if it's this degree of feeling good, but that you had the intention of feeling good and that you had the intention of altering your consciousness, categorically makes it degenerative, undisciplined, fickle, impulsive, subordinate, enslaved by impulses. So what do? They more so use these other proxies to then linearize it instead of categorizing it. So most of the time, this reduces to the health cope. I had this really set up well. Let me just check my notes. This usually stems from low IQ consequential morality. Suddenly they forget that the morality is actually about sovereignty and discipline, but for them, discipline is a utility, not something intrinsically valued in and of itself. Discipline is a utility to health or whatever, and which eventually reduces to a utilities and sub-utilities to sexuality. To access to sexuality, because that is the ultimate fucking goal for the most insentient, single-celled organism, pathetic fucking dorks, is successful sexuality, successful sexual reproduction. And so, yeah, I'm checking notes. I got live chat here, comments, I guess. First live chat comment, just call me Hunter, appreciate it. Or maybe that's an insult or something. I'm sure someone who's watching this will get triggered or bitchy at some point and cope and see them poop their pants. Nevertheless, this utility conveniently obscures the sovereignty. So now it becomes a question of utility. And once it's about utility, that opens the door to this linearity, to making it on a continuum. So suddenly there's several utilities. There's the health utility, the culture and socialization needs utility, the freedom utility, the lifestyle utility, and this sort of presumption that there is a need for pleasure. You can't escape pleasure or indulgence. You can't escape the mandate, or you can't escape your desire for that. And we'll see shortly why that's a cope and all of that. So once they cross over into, well, now it's on a continuum, now it becomes very easy to redefine what the standard is for when drinking is wrong. Usually it really just reduces to, well, whatever degree of drinking is beyond what they want to drink at is suddenly wrong. They redefine it so that it's easy. It often reduces to health copes so that one drink is acceptable, and then that becomes inductive because one drink is not bad for you or isn't that big a deal or isn't harmful. And isn't it remarkable that two drinks, instead of becoming harmful because they're operating on linearity, two drinks become slightly less harmless. Instead of it becoming harmful, it just becomes slightly less harmless. Oh, it's you, Marchese Intelligence Agency, Aragorn07, my friend. Good to see you. Good to see you on YouTube here, it looks like, too. Much appreciated. So, yeah, checking notes, checking my intel here. I'm eager to see your intel reports for Iran, for when Iran eventually pops off again. I'm sure we'll be on it there. So, good to see you, oh 07. So, the continuum, or now it becomes an inductive, a mathematical induction. It becomes 2 is slightly less harmless. 3 is still slightly less harmless. So there's really no category of harmful. So category of harmful really becomes the easy version of drinking to avoid, which is drinking yourself into like oblivion and homelessness. Now, what's remarkable about this too is that there's recent research that suggests that there's the quote from much of these studies is no safe amount of alcohol, or there does not exist a safe amount of alcohol. So meaning that one drink is unsafe, meaning that it's damaging, it does XYZ thing to your health. So the health can go the fuck out the window. Moreover, you can't cope and say, well, I didn't know that up until now. Because truth exists and has consequences and proliferates regardless of whether or not we know that what that truth is, or whether or not we have evidence for that truth. And so we could all know deep down, whether it's felt, whether it's rationally concluded too, that inevitably one drink has negative health consequences. Like significantly so, not just like kind of marginally, slightly so. Not, well, the liver's prepared to process one drink per hour. One fucking drink in 1 fucking hour is categorically unsafe. So you know what that means too? That means down to the fucking sip, faggot. It's unsafe. It's unhealthy. It's not good for you. QE fucking D. So your idea that alcohol in principle with one drink through health or whatever other cope Roger that on the intel, duly noted. We'll check in on DMs about that. And so the down to the sip is health harmful. And so this health utility goes right the fuck out the window. And this also proliferated, this linearity thing often proliferated as things like people saying, I don't drink. And what that really means is I don't get absolutely pissed drunk like a college student. So this is how this like false linearity goes. I don't drink, but what that means is they do drink alcohol every fucking day. They have their precious sippy goy juice, 1 or 2 beers after work, and then they get drunk on the weekends. But because it's like social, that doesn't count as drinking or getting drunk or categorically bad or indulgent or fickle or degenerative. There's also a low IQ element to this wherein they don't understand consequence and they don't understand things outside of that health utility. So moreover, when they don't observe the effects, tangible physical effects of the getting drunk to the point of like hangover, but if they're not hungover, there's no tangible negative effect because they only understand negative effects in terms of feelings, in terms of feeling good and feeling bad and health utility. There's that low IQ element of totally not understanding their desire, need, want for sovereignty in and of itself. So the moment you make that decision to intend to drink is the wrong, is the negative consequence. It erodes your soul. It erodes your spiritual health. It erodes your mental health to reject yourself that way, to reject your ideal self. So And isn't it remarkable, the health cope? Oh, really? You want to be healthy? Gee, I wonder what else you could do. I wonder what you could do for health. Just Call Me Hunter says, drinking has destroyed my brother's life, and he has 2 kids that he also takes care of. It destroys his own life and impacts his kids when he goes to jail for doing stupid shit when he was hammered. Yeah, and before that, you know, because everybody who reads that says, well, I'll never become that. But what happens before that? He was saying, I'll never become that. So it that actually makes me think of, and I have this in my notes somewhere, but might as well say it while I'm thinking it. There's this idea that, well, you have to live with some kind of vice. Everyone has their vice or something like that. And so the suggestion that you can't have any vice at all, to include drinking, is an extreme. It's felt as an extreme because it feels like an overwhelming sense of, now I have to restructure myself, now I have to restructure my identity and everything. And they also imagine it as, that means I have to guilt myself perpetually and self-flagellate endlessly. And it's always put you on the path of addiction no matter what. And this is what it inevitably leads to. And let's just picture me as the extreme. Let's say you're saying I'm extreme. Okay, let's also evaluate the extreme version of what you're saying, the alcohol down to, and not you, Hunter, just you as in the people who argue for this. That extreme amounts to being in jail, in and out of jail, drunk driving, fucking up with your kids, your family, and all of that. What is, if you're saying I'm extreme, what is my extreme amounting to? I have a house, I'm married successfully, I do my streams, I do my articles, I do my business, I read books, I got my bookshelf here, I go to school. Yeah, okay, so let's suppose what I'm saying is extreme, and then there's the extreme of alcohol. Which would you rather fucking have, genius? Which would you rather lead yourself to? You only think that what I'm saying is extreme because you think it means you have to live in perpetual guilt. This fear of perpetual guilt falsely presupposes that the way to incentivize good behavior or not doing bad behavior is punishment for bad behavior. Now, punishment needs to somewhat be there and everything, but the greater incentivizer for not doing bad behavior is doing good behavior that you love and you have affection for and you care for so much that you forget to do bad behavior, that you don't have a desire to do bad behavior because you so love what you value. I so love reading, doing these streams, values, talking to friends and hanging out, reading, learning, evaluating truth, exercising my speech here, that I forget to drink. I don't care to drink because I am happy. I'm at peace. I don't want to because I don't care for fickle feelings and pleasure. But if you're an insentient baby, all you're preoccupied with is making badsy feelsies go away and making goodsy feelsies come in. So if there's anything where you actually want help and are serious, and you know, because I know some people will just take this as roid raging or whatever, that is the fundamental frame or understanding you need to have to get your behavior on track, to get yourself on track. Because if you're fretful, and fair enough, it's a false frame. It's a logic that seems sound, but realistically doesn't apply and isn't sound actually. And sometimes we're just led to that, or we're born with that, or sometimes we just think that and don't know better. So there is an earnestness to that. I will say that. That is that this idea that you have to do all of this because otherwise you're self-flagellating in perpetuity. So I had more, there was something really profound and good about the linearity versus categorical cope to the drinking, but perhaps that'll arise. I try to think of it in the moment, but perhaps it'll arise. So, relatedly, let's go over this presumption of pleasure. Now, people think that you have to select a vice. You have to select a pleasure. You have to select a feelsy goodsy because you can't escape your desire for these things, or to make it zero means that you have no life to live. And this falsely presumes that hedonism is the teleology. And this stems from that false frame that's in earnest. That this also stems from instincts. Our instincts tell us that we have to pursue pleasure and avoid pain because that is the mechanism by which we survived. And so your brain is telling you you're going to die without pleasure and pleasantries. And that's why people will say something like, well, you gotta live a little. Like to them, it is dying to be absent pleasure because your brain operates that way, and that's how we survived. Now, this problem also seeks to ameliorate the desire for pleasure. It seeks to ameliorate the overwhelming desire for pleasure, this overwhelm. That in and of itself is uncomfortable in a way. Now, in a way, we try to beat that by being sovereign, by training against it with discipline, and other times we try to beat that by indulging in it. Can't beat them, join them, I guess. Now, this becomes a problem because this isn't happiness, this isn't peace, this isn't joy, this is indulgence. Pleasure does not equal happiness. These two things categorized as quote-unquote good feelings by the nature of the English language, but they're not both good feelings. They are, pleasure is physiological, happiness is spiritual good feelings. And so when you can't distinguish that difference because of the nature of the English language, you just conflate them. You consider them the same. But obviously that procures a problem. And what is that problem is you're actually fucking miserable because you're indulging in your pleasure and you're not living by your spirit, living by your soul, not doing good things, just doing things that feel good. Now, what does this also produce? This also produces guilt. And so when you're guilty, and that guilt stems from low self-esteem, from not living up to yourself, now you need another cope that is to redefine standards and everything because you're so wounded that guilt feels like you're dying. It's like a painful, painful wound in that way. But rather than heal your wound by living up to yourself, it's easier and it's metabolically conservative to cope and to then redefine everything. So you redefine pleasure and drinking and everything such that you are categorically correct at all times. Now, when you are categorically correct at all times, now you're coping and now you are betraying yourself. And to keep it up, you have to come up with all these other hedges and copes and everything of the like. The thought further becomes this is normal, this is normative. Some fucking faggot idiot tried making the argument that essentially, well, it's a part of our culture and we've always drank, so therefore, and it's like this fucking low IQ, irrational gay logic that's really just using feelings as a barometer is, well, if it proliferated through culture, it must have served a function. And if it served a function, it must have served a good function. And if it served a good function, it has a place here. Therefore, it's a part of our culture, and therefore people drink. If everyone else drinks, then drinking must be good, and it must serve some function. There's no way that many people arrived at drinking as something to do if it was bad. Now, this, of course, obscures that people converge on bad behavior. People converge on bad feelings, on doing bad things, on indulging their feelings. Most people aren't rational in that way, actually. The number of people as empirical evidence is not empirical evidence because people have all different sorts of intentions and motives, and one of those intentions and motives is to feel good. I gotta stretch my leg here on my leg rest. That's right by the camera here. And so I'm starting to get all over the place here. This was because I'm trying to really get at the depths of these logics and these false frames and everything like that. So I bounce back and forth. This also becomes about relaxation or lifestyle in this presumption that it has a place in presumption of pleasure. Lifestyle is a remarkable obfuscation of the problem of the premise, because when it's in the category of lifestyle, it's necessarily legitimate. It is necessarily of the category of morally legitimate, of right, of good, of not indulgent, of not fickle, of not impulsive. This tries to reduce it to mere lifestyle as an obfuscation of the language. But obviously, everything is an evaluation on whether it's right or wrong. And so, no, it's not just a matter of fucking lifestyle. Because then you could just say anything is lifestyle. Okay, I want to do heroin as a lifestyle, bro. Don't tread on me. Lifestyle then extends to these copes about freedom and freedom standard of, well, so long as it's not hurting anybody. This very carefully obscures in or operates in low IQ hurt as, well, only if it's physical tangibility. Now, as we just saw, as the health, it's literally definitionally harm to the self. And then it becomes, well, but I have that choice. I value sovereignty and I value the freedom to make that choice. Freedom to be unfree and enslaved by your impulses isn't fucking freedom, faggot. I guess we should let children eat all the candy that they want then, because that's freedom. Oh, what's that? Well, it's not freedom because then that it's detrimental to themselves. Oh, crazy concept. It's almost like nothing fucking changes when somebody is an adult. Sovereignty and freedom isn't the freedom to indulge in your impulses, because that's not freedom. You are listening. You are answering to your impulses and not answering to yourself. Freedom and sovereignty, especially as written in the Constitution, means doing what you want with your life as purpose, as answering to your higher self, your higher calling, answering to God. The freedom to exercise God's will or your superego's will, absent pleasure and pleasantries and impulse. So, and I have this up here in my big headers here, the relaxation related to the lifestyle. This obscures an arbitrary insertion of the definition of alcohol, because we know that alcohol relaxes. But this is another obfuscation of the English language. It relaxes the physiology, your muscles, your blood vessels, so they then translate that to mean relax emotionally. But it doesn't make you relax emotionally. The only thing that makes you relax emotionally is emotional regulation and fucking actually relaxing instead of being a neurotic faggot freak based on false frames of what you're supposed to be doing or whatever. It only merely suppresses anxiety, but the anxiety still sits there latently and comes back with a vengeance, sort of rebounds back. So relaxation and lifestyle are both part of this cope of the presumption of it needing a place in our life because we need pleasure in our life because we can't escape the desire for it or something like that. But this idea that it's torturous to neglect pleasure falsely makes the question of, oh, I had it really good up here. It's in a different part here. This question of essentially thinking of it as denying yourself. Why would I perpetually deny myself this? Whereas instead the question is, why would I live in simplicity? Why would I deny myself sovereignty? Why would I deny myself agency, what I want to do with my life, what I consider valuable, what I want to be, and what I'm designed to be? Why would I reduce myself to neurotransmitters is the actual question there, not why would I deny myself fickle pleasure and pleasantries. Also, just like at the very least, you fucking faggot, like at least just do something like fucking drink Monster Rehabs all the time or something, or drink the fucking White Monster. You know, at least that's just not destructive. It still betrays sovereignty. And even I do this. I drink a lot of caffeine. I love caffeine. I'm giving it up tomorrow starting Ash Wednesday for Lent. But like that falls in the category. I do a wrong thing every day and drink the caffeine. But I'm not scared of that because I won't self-flagellate. And that I don't self-flagellate doesn't amount to an excuse to drink caffeine or excusing myself, because I always tell myself and know that it is wrong categorically to drink caffeine every day according to sovereignty, because I'm doing it to feel good. I'm doing it because I like the way it makes me feel. I have my copes too about focus and everything. I'm getting hot. I'm getting a little hot and sweaty. But the question is, why would I deny myself sovereignty? Why would I deny myself sovereignty instead of why would I deny myself these pleasures, pleasantries, and reduce myself to being a fucking single-celled organism? Now we're almost at the end of our notes here. This is a separate point, essentially, that doesn't really segue very well, but that is this cope excuse of masculinity. There's this idea that largely rests in, well, because men can drink more than women, that must mean linearly drinking more makes you more man, more manly. And redefining it this way now makes drinking not a product of weakness, of weak subordination, but a test of resilience, a test of your ability to withstand toxicity. And it's just like, yeah, okay, bro, why don't I cut my leg off to prove like how I'm not a pussy? I'm not gonna cry about it. Why don't I prove to myself how much I can withstand pain just for that sake? You do have to exercise discomfort and everything, but you can take this to a point of it doesn't have sovereign utility. And it betrays other values. It betrays the value of the body, the value of the self. You're in a way just inflicting harm. You are mistreating yourself in that way. So it betrays that self-respect. And so on the masculinity part of it, that's also this remarkable cope where it's similar to this self-esteem cope of redefining everything and everything. If they indulge in this supposed linear expression of masculinity, they get to then convince themselves they're masculine by doing the fucking easy feelsy goodsy thing instead of what's challenging and what's actually masculine in emotional resilience, in discipline, in competence, in pursuit of truth, in withstanding truth. And so my thing here flicked the camera. This cope of making like it's a test of strength instead of a failure of restraint. And this also relates to masculinity insofar as all this stuff about sovereignty has a particular place in masculinity, because what does it mean? It means independence, and independence means self-provision. Self-provision means ability to provide for others. Now, this part is like taboo now, usually, because that essentially reduces to be a beta or something like that. So it's not about that, but it's an understanding of you won't feel like a man if you're dependent. And if you're dependent on alcohol for masculinity, if you're dependent on feeling good for livelihood, for a sense of livelihood, you're never going to feel like a man. You're never going to feel like a tough guy. And that's just it too. Another way to say this is capacity is not the same thing as like a value, the evaluation, just this measurement of capacity. But that's another thing too. Ask yourself right the fuck now, do you feel tough with all of this stuff? Like honestly, earnestly. Because when you're doing these games, you're relying on how it makes you feel. But the feelings fade and everything, so you have to do these cycles, these pathological cycles in perpetuity to make yourself feel tough and all that, because otherwise the feeling of not toughness bubbles up and the suppression goes away of it, so you have to suppress it again. So all you're living in is suppression, up and down, instead of just making it go away by living up to yourself and by being masculine instead of appearing masculine. And so, why is this like an offense here? Why am I all riled up and everything? Because this offends sovereignty. I love sovereignty. I love discipline. I love purpose. I love life outside of neurotransmitters and everything. That is deeply valuable to me. So, yes, it literally offends me when people do this. It also just offends everyone else's intelligence to try to fool everybody, including yourself. It is sad betrayal of yourself, and it is dishonesty. It is lying to yourself. It is rationalizing in lying to yourself. So it betrays all of these things. Like, and that's the deep offense. And you cannot hedge between hedonism and toughness. These two things will never get along or manage to amalgamate. Now, I'll say too, pursuant to the self-flagellation, I already said the self-flagellation, but an aside point of the self-flagellation that'll wrap us up here is, does this mean torture yourself like by eating like the most plain thing ever every single meal and all of that? No, of course not. Eat what you like, but do not get off to it. Do not make it the nexus of your life. Do not make pleasure and pleasantries the goal. Make it a contributor, because you got to eat what you like, and or you want to eat what you like, and you'll like sushi, you'll like chicken and rice, you'll like these things, you'll like ice cream, whatever. We have these cookies that I keep eating that I like, and it is an objectively wrong thing, and it is fat coated or whatever. It is insovereign and everything. But you don't perpetually guilt yourself. You don't make it the central operating system of your life, and you just live with it. And you can enjoy the consumption. I mean, really not alcohol at all, because it has nothing to it. There's other, everything that alcohol purports to give you, you can get from something that's much more healthy and less destructive, down to the fucking singular drink and drop. But the point of consume and let yourself enjoy the consumption, just don't, that is not the primary operation there. That is the part also too of living with this, inescapability of wanting to eat things you like and so on. So let me check, because I said that linearity versus sovereignty, or excuse me, the linearity, the false logic. Yeah, I'll just say that if you are using utility, health utility, social utility, that now makes drinking in the category of, or at least not in the category of bad. So now it becomes a new defined standard on the spectrum. Because if it's not in the category of bad, now at the very least you have to start somewhere at goodness. So one drink becomes good. Then it's inductive, as I said, that the second drink is not bad because one drink can't have been bad. So two drinks becomes, well, okay, it's just less harmless. And then three drinks is less harmless. So then their utility has to be some version of health or some version of, well, sending you on the streets, making you have no livelihood of anything else. Culture plays that role. Sociability plays that role. That's why people say, well, one drink to be socially lubricate. But that's an oxymoron, because if the purpose is social lubrication, it butts heads, because it's never going to be felt as authentic socialization. So I think I'll wrap up there. I know it's good practice to have a full summarized conclusion. That's what they teach you when you're writing in college and everything. But there was too much to go over there, and I'm kind of like shaking with hunger a bit and sweating with hunger. So that'll be our stream for this time. Thank you for Hunter. Hunter said a super chat. Let me just move over to Entropy Stream. I appreciate the super chat. You're the first super chatter. So oh 07, much appreciated. Let me go to sign in. Forgot to sign in. All right, let me go to... Stand by Super Goy chat. Yeah, I sort of like abandoned the idea because nobody was really doing it. And then I don't, it gives me trouble to find where the super chats even show up. So let me see. Or maybe it's on... Maybe it's on Rumble? No, it's okay. I got to read it fair and square. Was it on Rumble or Entropy Stream? Because I think Rumble has that option, but I didn't set it up. What if I go to... Yeah, it never... Where did I go here? If you want, you could just put it in where you're operating in YouTube, and then I could read it from there. Appreciate it, my good friend. Alrighty. Well, I appreciate it. Good friend, Hunter there. Good to see you and good to talk to you. I'll try to set that up and I'll get back to you on it. So much appreciated. Much appreciated for all your support. Thank you to everybody who watches, all my good friends from Twitter, and especially you, Hunter07, shout out. So that's marchesemethods.com for one-on-one coaching, You could do one session for $50, and you could do 4 sessions for $120 paid up front, so you save yourself some money there. You could DM or email me for my Discord, $5 a month, and you get all the base therapy and life coaching you want through text messages on my Discord and messaging me directly. Over on marchesemethods.com, there's also my merch, my hoodie, the Marchese Methods official hoodie. I set that up, so head on over there. And then there's entropystream.live/Marchese Methods for super chats, which it looks like I will have to now set up. I'm famous now, so thank you, Hunter. I'm famous. I get the super chats now. I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm ascendant. I'm up on top. I made it into the big league. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you next time.